All praise and glory to the Most High. HAYA HAYA HAYA. What's going on, everybody? What's going on to everybody putting that indigenous truth out there? It's been a while since I made a video. Just wanted to share some pictures with you of some tree stumps, and then I'm gonna let a video play that I came across tonight rather. Saw it on the Facebook page, 1828 Definition of American. It's a Facebook page that's dedicated to the indigenous truth. All right, it's a video that was put on there by I think the author is AB the Legend. All right, basically, I'm just gonna let it play. I think it's about 35-40 minutes long or something like that. A lot of you know the information, a lot of you don't. As King Drop says, there's plenty of babies in the bathwater. Don't throw them out. Get the babies out the bathwater. A lot of you have some puzzle pieces. Watching this video may give you some more pieces so you can put your puzzle pieces together and make a bigger picture. A lot of you may not agree with some of the information. It's totally up to you. Again, I'm just passing the information along. That's all it is. But let me start off with these pictures, and I'll go ahead and let the video play. And then, again, all praise and glory to the Most High HAYA. I want to thank everybody for what you do. Thank you for putting in your time, effort, and energy. And as always, as I like to say, may the Most High bless you, your households, your path, and everything that you do. HAYA HAYA. All right, so let's see. Originally, when I came across that information, no forest on flat earth, courtesy of King Drop, I did a video called Mountains or Stumps, and I posted it on my YouTube channel. And at that time I was using my iPhone and my iPad, and I just was not satisfied with the visually, because not knocking the iPhone and iPad, they're good for what they are, but bringing this type of information, man, to really get, they were not doing this stuff any justice. So I went out and bought me a decent DSLR, got some decent lenses, so I can bring you better visuals and better clarity, crisp clarity, and so on and so forth. But anyways, this tree stump here, we've been taught they're mountains, but clearly, just looking at it, this is in the state of New Mexico, in Tucumcari, New Mexico, Interstate 40, east or west, exit 333. All right. Now, originally, when I did the video, I showed you a front view. I was at a truck stop across the street from this, at exit 333, and I showed you the front view of it. But this is about 5 miles away from that exit. I stopped on the side of the road and zoomed in and got this picture, so you can really see how massive this thing is, this tree stump is. All right. Again, that's Interstate 40. I was heading west at the time. Tucumcari, New Mexico, exit 333. All right. Now, that's the same tree stump. Okay. You can see that little bitty car, but you can get an idea how huge that thing is. Again, I'm 5 miles away from the exit. All right. All right. Now, when I originally posted this in that video, this one, I didn't even know this was behind it. This one sits behind it. Okay. All right. Now, it's not as big as that one, but it's huge. Clearly you can see that. You see the buildings, the little structures there. All right. Okay. Now, again, that sits behind that one. All right. Now that's, maybe this will help you get a better idea. Now, I'm on the westbound side of the interstate, on the side of the road. And I'm standing uh, behind the speed limit sign here, in front of my truck. Now, see the telephone poles. Again, you can get an idea how huge that thing is. All right. Then we got the two little ones next to it. Again, just look at the buildings, they're the little structures, and you can compare. Now, like I said, I didn't even know these were sitting behind that big one. Okay. All right. Again, that's if you're traveling, the state of New Mexico, Interstate 40, exit 333 in Tucumcari, New Mexico. There's a Love's truck stop across the street from these. So if you want to check them out, if you're in a car, you'll probably be able to find some type of access road that goes back there to check them out. If you're in the truck, the truck stop's right there. Love's truck stop. All right. And this one is my favorite one. This is in Arizona, Interstate 40, east or west, exit 79, Silver Springs Road. Now, when I originally saw this information, No Forest on Flat Earth, courtesy of King Drop Nation, I was still trying to process that information about the mountains being cut down trees and so on and so forth. So, I had a lot going on at the time. And, a day later, I'm traveling, but I came across this one. And this is the one that I saw and I looked at without a doubt. I said, that's a tree stump. Again, it's not that I doubted the other ones, but, again, you come across that type of information, it took me a minute to process that and try to, figure that out. But when I saw this one, there was no doubt in my mind. So this particular time, I'm heading back east, Interstate 40, exit 79 in the state of Arizona. This is outside of Kingman, Arizona. All right, so I'm on the side of the road, off on the shoulder, so you can get an idea how huge this stump is. Look at the stop sign, that's a zoomed in picture. Okay. Matter of fact, I was using the 18. For those of you who are into photography, was using the kit lens that came with my camera to get this shot. It's 18 to 135 millimeter f 3.5 to 5 something. I think 5 it is. And, those of you who are into photography, you know what all that means. But zoomed in using that, and then this next one zoomed in all the way. So now, clearly you can look at that and tell, so, in light of, and I also want to say thank you to the brother Teach Me to Be Priestly, because he's been dropping a lot of information about our sacred trees and so on and so forth. I want to thank that brother. Thank you for that information. Again, thank you to King Drop, because that's where I came across this information at. And again, it didn't take me long to, figure this out, because I see this stuff all the time. Again, I just thought they were mountains. That's what we've been. That's what they fed us. But after coming across that information, I see these things all the time, and looking at them, they tree stumps. That's what they look like. So, but if you're traveling, whether you're in a car, whether you're in a truck, again, this is in the state of Arizona, outside of, if you heading west, it'll be like 20 miles outside of, before you get to Kingman, exit 79, Silver Springs Road on Interstate 40. But it's a lot of these things out there, these what we have been taught to be mountains. There's a lot of these out there, these tree stumps. You know, you just, you know, as I come across them, you know, and I put them out there, and I'll let you know what exit, what state, you know, so on and so forth. And you know, I encourage those of you who are who have been prisoners in these concrete cities, get out of them. You know, get out, travel. You know, a lot of you're not gonna have any choice anyways. But you know, that's a whole nother story. But anyways, you know, get out, travel. You know, a lot of times, you know, all you really need is a reliable vehicle, some gas. You can bring your food. You know, just so you know, for those of you, you know, if you just need to change of scenery, you know, get out and travel. You know, a lot of times you don't necessarily have to stay in a hotel, because these truck stops are set up for travelers. You know, a lot of times, you know, if you just want to get out for a weekend trip or something like that, you know, you don't need a hotel. You could really, you know, if you got some cool people to vibe out with that could travel with you, you know, they want to see these things that, you know, me and other people are showing you, you know, bringing to you, you know, you just need a reliable vehicle, some gas, you can bring your own food, you know, some good company, good music, you know, some scriptures, of course, bring HAYA HAYA, everything you do. You know, you can come out here and see some of this stuff. You know, a lot of you, you know, you need to come on out here and check it out, because a lot of us, not you, all of us, you know, a lot of us, you know, we're going to have to, you know, go to these places for various reasons. But, you know, but anyways, so now I just wanted to show you those, and then, so we'll get into this video. You know, I'm not going to, the only thing I'm going to say about this video that's coming up, it starts off with Akon talking, and I just want to show you that, or just want to point out that I don't know who the artist name, the guy sitting next to Akon, I don't know his name, I don't know who he is, but I just pay attention to his facial expression as Akon says what he says. Okay, again, you know, Akon is running that, you know, we're from Africa thing, but if you look at the look on the brother face next to him, you know, who's clearly from this side of the world, he looks at him like, you know, whatever, but he's one of his artists, so I don't think he really could say that much, but you could look at his facial expressions and tell he wasn't in agreement with what Akon was saying. But anyways, again, enjoy the video. Like I said, I'm just passing the information on. The author of the video is AB The Legend, and I got this video off of the Facebook page, 1828 Definition of American. All right, enjoy. Get the babies out the bathwater. You know, again, to all you putting that indigenous truth out there, thank you for what you do. All praise and glory to the Most High. Hey, hey, enjoy it.
12 and the end shit like a Mayan calendar. There was a lot of people in the Americas. Japan was over here. China was over here. I mean, that's right. They were coming. Why do you think that this place was so valuable? Because all nations were coming to the Americas and bringing their ideas and their trade. I mean, they were meeting in Mexico. That was the meeting place.
Was a slide from a place called Chichen Itza, where black people who look like us arresting the people that we call Native Americans, who they considered foreigners coming onto their land.
Bald-headed black man. And this is the image of most Moors.
Civilizations here in America, man. We had whole civilizations.
People call the Pics text and the Zapotects.
See that Moorish chief, and you will be looking exactly at Montezuma. He is fitting every description that they gave. And then he has the Native Americans today. Look at them. They are Asians. You can't tell the difference between a Native American or a goddamn Chinaman.
I love my Lakota brothers and all my brothers and sisters out there, out west. But don't think that they're the only Indians. You know, people, you need to wake up. Get out of this whole vein of thinking that an Indian has got to look like a straight hair, light skin Hollywood Indian. Because that's a creation of Hollywood, that's a creation of the white man.
This is from the Temple of Warriors in Chichen Itza. It cost me $600 to get this book. Why did it cost me $600 to get this book and they had to take it from the Smithsonian vault? This is showing a race of people in Mexico, all right, who are arresting the people who call themselves natives today. They put a special paint on these people so that they could recognize them, and these bars on their bodies in paint gave rise to the symbolism of a prisoner wearing bars, the barred uniform. So these people who are pale are calling themselves Mayans, and these right here are the Olmec Mayans, or the sheep. All right? And so our identity here has been stolen. There was no slave trade yet in Chichen Itza when these were being made. Slavery came thousands of years later. How did these black people get here?
If you didn't walk backwards, stay far. With the individuals and lives, got some more into my side.
Oldest Homo sapiens ever found on this land are from Brazil. The name that the archaeologists and anthropologists gave to the skeleton is Lucia, Lucia. All right. Dr. Richard Neve of the University of Manchester did craniological studies on this entity and did a reproduction of the model of what Lucia would look like, and based on craniological studies, which is phenotype, he declared that she was anthropologically Negro. Period. I'm not even going to some of the other things that we could quote and highlight. I did that lecture on Sound of the TV when I did Indigenous Science versus Evolution. But my question to Henry Louis Gates is this. If you're going to measure the DNA of Native Americans, why don't you go get a sample from Lucia and get family tree DNA to get their archaeogenomic scientists to use that set of DNA to measure it up against all the people that you tested? Morgan Freeman, all right, Oprah, all these people that you tested. Take her set of genes and match it up against it. You are taking the Austronesian DNA of these pale groups, measuring it against ours and telling us we're not Native American. That was a part of the plot from the beginning.
Their mahogany skin shone through. Then he went on to say that these dark angels would make exceptional wives for the English planters, and their dark skin would bleach out in 2 generations. Unquote. That's a quote that he made.
So that was the whole goal, was to try to bleach out, as they say.
Yeah, but it kind of tells you that first Americans were a rich brown people. They were mahogany in color. That these dark angels would make exceptional wives for the English planters, and their dark skin would bleach out in 2 generations. That these dark angels would make exceptional wives for the English planters, and their dark skin would bleach out in 2 generations. That these dark angels would make exceptional wives for the English planters, and their dark skin would bleach out in 2 generations. That these dark angels would make exceptional wives for the English planters, and their dark skin would bleach out in 2 generations.
Psychopath.
Asians came here, and those who ushered the whites here were Moors. And they are the ones who created New York. Now, you know, if in Shakespeare's plays and whatnot, when they speak on Othello, it's interesting that Othello was over 6 feet tall, bald-headed black man. And this is the image of most Moors. Look at your movie stars. Almost all of them have a bald head. Almost all of them are 6 feet tall. Look at all of your rap artists. Almost all of them are from Jamaica. And why is that? Jamaica, the islands, Barbados, all of these islands that are not nowhere, near being true Americans. Well, where did that come from? How did that take place? I'm going to tell you how it took place. When the Europeans came to our country, one of the interesting things that they did was they made pacts and covenants and treaties with the Moors. The Moors are the ones that told them how to get here. The Moors are the ones that was on the ships navigating them, showing them to this beautiful land. The Moors thought that they could make an agreement with these individuals and a pact with these Jews. See, a lot of times you hear one story about, America is made up out of all of the people that England kicked out. But the truth of the matter is, that's only a portion of what the Eurocentric American history is really about. It's really archaically about the Jews coming over here, and they are the ones that used the Moors to get here. The Moors existed and had a government way before, supposedly, even the Asians. The Mongoloids came here. The people that are known as Native Americans today, look at them. They are Asians. You can't tell the difference between a Native American or a goddamn Chinaman. Because they're the same fucking people. They are Mongoloid orientation. They came down through the Bering Straits. Now, nobody's denying this history. All right? Nobody's denying this anymore. But what they don't tell you about is the history of the Moors and how they established New York. They established almost all of that East Coast to be theirs. They established that. Have you ever noticed how the mentality of a New York nigga is? The average New York nigga, the average New Jersey nigga, always have had Moorish mentality, which is cutthroat. They will cut your throats and not give a damn about you.
Christopher Columbus, the guy that captained who was the navigator of his lead ship, was a Moor. Nino Alonso, whatever the brother name.
Also called him an African.
He was a Moor.
They called him an African.
He was a Moor.
You had a lot of Moors that come over here with Caucasian. Matter of fact, it was the Moors who brought the Caucasian over here. They were Moors who got off them boats, the Columbus Neal and the Soto Neal. They were black folk. That's what we call black folk today. It was a Moor who led Lewis and Clark. But he was a Cherokee. The Cherokee had came over way before the European, and they had been here a long time. Probably about 10,000 years or so.
A lot of the Moors, especially the Spanish Moors, invaded this continent with Columbus and also De Soto. De Soto had Spanish Africans with him on his Native American range. Go read the book of Chesto Menendez. You think it's Spanish, but if you go and read it, you will find out he was a Spanish African. He was a Moor. I'm not friends with the Moors from that perspective. I know their history. You came in raping and enslaving Native American people in South Carolina. It's in the congressional records.
Civilizations here in America, man. We had whole civilizations. The East Coast was inhabited by, one type of native close to the, the Iroquois and what have you. The Midwest area was inhabited by a mixture of, black indigenous people, Mongoloid indigenous people. But the Southeast was almost exclusively inhabited by black indigenous people. And at one time, there was even a distant outpost of the Aztec culture in the southeastern United States, and they traded with the Aztecs that were in Mexico. Matter of fact, go Google a picture of the last two full-blooded Aztecs and tell me what you find. Tell me what you find. You go see two people that you know are black. Go Google it. In 1515, when Hernan Cortez got here, there were another group of natives, Mongoloid natives, that had got sick of centuries of domination at the hands of the Aztecs that were black. And so when they saw these white men coming on the shore, they gladly ushered them up to the gates of Tenochtitlan. They did it gladly, so they can get these black dudes off their damn neck. It is what it is. They made a strategic decision or whatever. They opened the door for the white man, but hey, look where it's got the world now.
Once Christopher Columbus was able to come to the Americas, he was able to engage in what they call, he was searching for resources. That's all it really was. He was coming here for resources because you have to understand that in Spain at the time, right, the Moors had been ruling for 700 years, 800 years. After the fall of Rome, the Goths came in, the different Gothic tribes came in, and they were the Vandals, people we call Vandals and things like that. They came in, and at 710, certain delegates from what we call Iberia, and that would be certain Christian groups, certain Jewish groups, sent for the Moors to come to Iberia to put smack down on the Europeans. And that brings us up to the Moorish rule from 711 to 1492, which fell after the signing of this agreement. Now, there are many educated scholars who speak on this. It's just that we don't study these aspects of our history. So we're not. So all this sounds foreign and crazy to people, but I can validate all this via paperwork and things of that nature. So when we talk about Columbus, he discovered America for a certain group of Europeans, certain nations that didn't have access to the world prior to 1491. When Columbus arrived in the Americas, right? He arrived. He didn't come to mainland North America. He arrived at the Caribbean islands, right? When Columbus described the people he saw, he described them as what you would say Negro. But every Columbus Day, they will show you a picture of an amalgamated Native American from the Western territories talking about what Columbus did to their people. Columbus never met their people, never touched their people. Columbus dealt with the tribes in the Caribbean. The first tribes to be assaulted were the tribes in the Caribbean and on the East Coast and in South America. None of these were these amalgamated tribes that we see in the Midwest. None of them. They did not come into contact with the European until decades later. I got all the information right here. I don't feel like going into it. Who are they descendants of? They will be descendants of the Mongoloids that migrated here over the Bering Strait.
For some reason, if you're this color, that's what is supposed to be your story, regardless of whether you was born here or not. And that is a problem, because what that does is it gives us a false sense of inferiority, and it gives another people a false sense of superiority. When these people that they talk about who are Native Americans and Grand Chieftains today, talking about the ones that's opening the casinos and all this other stuff, they are all descendants of people from Tartary. And how can we prove this? This is because way back in the days, there was an empire in ancient China called the Xiang Dynasty. And the Xiang decided, under a man named Hu Shen, another Moor, decided to come over here and find their cousins, who they referred to as the Western Ixi, or Ixe, or Yi. And so when they came here, they found an Olmecs here that was already here from time immemorial, and they both merged their culture. When that culture merged together, they became one people. And then out of that people, we get the people today we call the Hopi, the Anasazi, the so-called Pueblo culture, and all of that, right? It wasn't until maybe 16,000 years later, when the Hindus was exiled from India by the Sindhi Moors, or the Moors from Old Bombay and all of that, kicked them out after the Hindu invasions. They all was brought over in boats and brought over here. When they came here, they then mixed with the so-called autochthon or aboriginal people who were already here, and then those aboriginal people allowed them to stay in a certain area, and they adopted them into certain aspects of the culture. This is where you get people called the Mixtecs and the Zapotecs and the Toltecs and these type of people. They were all descended from the Olmecs. Now the Olmec people, the original constituency, started to move further up. They started to move further up from La Venta, Palenque, Chichen Itza, and move further up into what we would now call the Midwestern United States, and then further, and then after a certain amount of time, they dwelled there and then started to disperse into sub-tribes and nations. Some of those sub-tribes and nations, one of the biggest one was called the Yamasee. I don't know if any people saw the movie Apocalypto, but in that movie there was a blue dye that they were painting the people who were going to be sacrificed. That blue dye actually comes from red clay that's found in Georgia, the red clay in Georgia. And it was an old custom that the queens would ingest some of the red clay in Georgia because it would help with the magical properties that they were trying to pass on to the babies. And a lot of autochthon people still do that to this day. So what happened was the Yamasee Nation basically... What had happened was the Yamasee Nation established themselves in what we call Georgia and all that. And then one of the sub... And then one of the... I'm sorry. And one of the sub... And then one of the sub-nations called the Southern Cree and then the Northern Creek decided to go against and fight the Yamasee. There was a big war between that, and then the Yamasee basically lost the war, and their women were then brought in as squaws, meaning captured queens, to populate with the Cree, the Northern Cree, and the Southern Creek. And once they had those babies, that became another nation now. That nation was then known as the Seminole. And then the Seminole were then given land back down in what we right here call Al Andalusia, and they came back down here.
Chicago, right here, where the Wrigley building is. A young fellow by the name of Jean-Baptiste de Sable. Jean-Baptiste, he founded Chicago when he traded with the Indians. And of course, there it is right at that particular time. It was called Chicago or Stinking Onion by the Indians. And de Sable, he didn't even change the name at all.
Historical records of Europeans and their descriptions unveil the fraud of this perception. In 1619, John Brown, the first English explorer, described the color of the people when he landed on the eastern shore of America in Jamestown, Virginia. He described Powhatan, the Algonquin chief he had encountered, to look more like a devil, he states, with some 200 or more men as black as himself. In the books, Letters and Notes on the North American Indigenous People of North America, written in 1841 by author George Parkland, a noted ethnographer, describes American Indigenous people of North America as all primitive tribes known in America are dark copper colored with jet black hair, while most possess curls in the extreme, which today is considered nappy hair, and every level of wavy hair in between. The texture of the hair is generally fine, soft or silk, or coarse and harsh. Catlin also noted the hair of the men falling down to the hams and sometimes to the ground is divided into plaits or slabs 2 inches wide and filled with a profusion of glue and earth, which becomes very hard and remains unchanged from year to year. Today, this form of hair is called locks.
Pyramid on the Nile in Northeast Africa doesn't have stair steps going up it. It doesn't have temples on top of its summit. They could not go and break through the boat on the temples atop those great pyramids. There are none there. And that was the truth that Egypt was writing about the Americans.
Oh, praise the Lord.
And the deeper I got into the record, the clearer it got. They started actually saying, and because Amun loved that land so much, he said it's his beloved land, and that word was Mary, the beloved, Mary, M-E-R-I, Mary. And the land, of course, stands before Ta. So you have the land, the beloved land,
He's on
Ta
his way,
Mary.
Beast Man.
And they kept that name and just put the Ta on the end of it. So Ta Mary became a Mary Ta, we simply say, America. We kept the name that Egypt gave to the Americans. So that was the big mystery behind that $10 million map that Martin Waltzmuller made and then put the name America on it in 1507. And then those who knew and those who were trying to hide things said, wait a minute, you can't put that name on here. And the next time you reprinted that map, it was off, it was gone. Because that's the name that Egypt had given the land, Tamari. That's where America came from. So now I have Egypt writing about the Americas, but they go further. They don't just talk about we named the Americas, they say it where it was. They said our founders, Amenemhat, Osiris, Isis, all of these, of course, they use those other names, you know, the Asa and the Aset. And so they said they are in the West. And all over the monuments, they talked about Osiris and said he is foremost of the Westerners, which means not in the front of, he was the most worshipped throughout. in the West, and not just his dead spirit. They were talking about the man himself being in the West. So now I have those records. And the deeper I got, the clearer it became, and then I started locating the cities all through the Americas, and not North America. He just says, man, those, they didn't call them Indians, but they said their cavalry is just so strong. They have bow and arrow cavalry. They are on horseback, and they are so strong, it's just devastating to us to try to take that land. So I tell you what, we're going to cut it right off at that river, and that's why all these pyramids are showing up from Mexico going down south, because of the Apaches and Comanches and whatever other tribes were there, black tribes and others, were whooping Egypt's own fears. A few weeks ago, a guy was digging a pool in his backyard in the downtown area of New Orleans. See, New Orleans was small one time, and this area was country.
These videos you can use
and
to put those puzzle pieces
they
together.
hit 6 feet down, they hit a casket.
King Drop, Lex
It
Will,
wasn't
Hot
casket
Mark,
on here.
Francisco,
It was a cypress casket.
get into the root of it
Cypress
all,
wood.
Arthur Scott,
You know,
so
when you
on and
dig
so
down more
forth.
than a foot or two in
Right now, I
New
don't really
Orleans,
have
you
much
get
to
water.
say. I'm kind of disgusted.
Cypress is a tree that's
You
grown
know,
in swamp.
I mean, this shit gets a
It's
little
not rotten.
frustrating at times, I will say.
Cypress, the cypress casket has been good for a few hundred years. They found black Indians inside with black artifacts, Indian artifacts.
The situations we're in, man, we don't have to.
They said, well, let's dig north. Dig north instead of that right here. They went north,
Beast man.
south, hit them, east, hit them, west, hit them.
Beast man,
They found
Beast
that
man, what you
there's
gonna
a
do
graveyard,
with the most high
an
kung
ancient
fu?
graveyard, that's almost a mile in north, south, east, and west, almost a mile apart, almost. And they found out that since when they weren't able to go any further laterally, like we did grade, we started digging down on top of the other. And they had found so far 20,000 graves.
1828 definition of America on America.
Okay? And this is about to hit. It hasn't hit.
But for those of you who are not
You haven't heard
familiar
on
with that,
news
it's
yet.
Facebook page. It's dedicated
It's going to
to
leak out.
the
They're hustling
indigenous
it
truth.
right now.
Because that's a creation of Hollywood. That's a creation of the white man.
The difference between us and them, we us, and they them. And that's that.
Set up a system that basically bankrupted all of the old dynasties that existed in so-called Africa, and then set up the expeditions that the Malian Empire would then extend further into the western portion of Mali, which they now call Mexico. So between 1321 and 1511, you had the rise and influx of all of these other Moors that were coming here, also to combat the Spanish annexation of all the colonies, that Moorish cities and colonies that they was trying to take over.
Stands right now, and you've got this black man. If you've ever seen this piece of art called the Moorish Chief, I'm going to tell you right now, they said they don't know who that man is modeled after, but when you understand the descriptions of Montezuma, this African that they call Montezuma, you will see that Moorish Chief, and you will be looking exactly at Montezuma. He is fitting every description that they gave, and then he has this little secret thing about him. When you look on his head, you see he's got this white cowl on his head, and underneath that white cowl is a little small red cap. Now, they'll try to say that's about the assassins or the assassins. Oh, no, you got to understand. Mexico is Lower Egypt. That's where Memphis was, and when you're the king of Memphis, your crown is red. And I'm thinking they're trying to show him secretly that this is Montezuma. They said Montezuma is this medium-built man, and they talked about the beard that he has that's shaped, and they're talking about he's black, and then others say very dark complected. And I'm looking at the Moorish chief, and I'm not seeing anything that does not agree with the descriptions that they give of Montezuma. And I'm saying, well, now we got a problem. Aztecs are Indians. That's what I was told. But now, I've got Martha Malaku's education under my belt, and in the book of Ivan Van Sertima, he talks about those 2 expeditions, those 2 voyages of ships that came out of Senegambia. He's talking about those 500 ships and those 2,000 ships that went across in 1306 and again in 1311, looking for the first group of ships, or about those years. Now, we have those ships coming across the Atlantic from West Africa, and then they say there is no record of what happened to them. Except now I'm in the Americas, I'm in Mexico, I'm looking in the records that the friars put together when they talked to these Africans there whose histories were being destroyed as soon as they took over that land. They were just burning them in the street, piling up the books. And yet here is this friar, here's this Bernardino Salgoon who's come in and he's earned that trust, and they said, well, we got a couple of books they didn't get. And so he's recreating the histories that Spain and the church thought they had destroyed. And so he's rewriting them all over again. And he's showing these Aztecs as blacks with African features. And now it gets a little better, because he's also talking about the conversation that Montezuma had with Cortez. And now here is Cortez also putting in his journal the conversation he had with Montezuma. And here's Castillo. He's putting in the conversation that Cortez had with Montezuma. And here are these other writers, and they're putting in this conversation that Montezuma is having with Cortez. And I thought it was unbelievable that Montezuma is sitting right there, this black African in this Moorish clothing with this little red cap on, because he's really the king of Memphis. And he's sitting there and he says, well, you know, my father and my grandfather say that we are not of this land. He said very clearly to Cortez, we are strangers here. We come across that sea in ships, and we landed at the city of Panuco, right south of Texas. And we came in, and people really didn't want to have much to do with us, but we found out how to work politics, and we started making some alliances, and before they knew it, we had become the most powerful group, and now we are the powerful group. And then we came and we found this island and built our capital on it in 1325 AD. Now we have 500 ships and then 2,000 ships leaving out of West Africa. In 1306, 1311, they're crossing the Atlantic. Nobody knows what happened to them. And here the Aztecs are saying, and we arrived about that same time in our ship. Coming from over there where the sun rise, and we came in, and now they've been painted in their books as blacks, as Africans.
The Mexican people always believe that the origin of the people in this country, it is Asia, right? We say the last ice age, right? 25,000 years ago, the land bridge, Aleutian Islands, and the people going through the Bering Strait, right?
Asians, the Mongoloids came here. The people that are known as Native Americans today, look at them. They are Asians. You can't tell the difference between a Native American or a goddamn Chinaman, because they're the same fucking people. They are Mongoloid orientation. They came down through the Bering Straits. Now, nobody's denying this history, all right? Nobody's denying this anymore.
You know, black indigenous people were already here first, all over North America and South America, and they were gradually invaded and overtaken by the Mongoloid natives, what you think of as a Native American, of course. But there were 2 different types of Native Americans living here in America before Amerigo Vespucci, Columbus, or any other Caucasian ever came here, or even before the Moors started coming here, for that matter. Arrowheads, etc. And all of these skeletons, for the most part, have one thing in common: that they were of a phenotype that wasn't suspected would have been living here in America. And the phenotype that they were closely resembled the natives on Vanuatu and the Australian Aborigines. And one can only postulate from this, and the archaeologists that found this also, theorized that basically these, black indigenous people were already here first, all over North America, South America, and they were gradually invaded and overtaken by the Mongoloid natives, what you think of as a Native American, of course. But there were two different types of Native Americans living here in America before Amerigo Vespucci, Columbus, or any other Caucasian ever came here, or even before the Moors started coming here, for that matter.
Another black group, a pre-Columbian black group in the Americas, mostly along the West Coast, California, was now Acapulco, of a black group of people who do not trace their ancestry to Africa. No one can understand where these people have come from. None of them survive anymore. They do not exist. They have been either bred out of existence or they were the victims of disease or whatever. However, with this new DNA testing, which is now, in other words, all the DNA of every group in the world is now fed into a computer. A computer then can make correspondences, comparisons between every other group. This black group, which they found traces of in the Americas, matches, strangely enough, with Micronesia on the other side of the Pacific to a people called the Negritos. These are black people who trace their origins not east from Africa, but westwards across the Pacific. Now that leaves a tremendous problem. How is it possible that these Negritos or their ancestors could have possibly come across the vast expanse of the Pacific to come here?
What would become the United States. Near Santa Barbara, California, a tribe called the Chumash has been building this type of sewn plank canoe since at least 1000 AD, calling it a tomolo'o. Linguists say that's how the Chumash would have pronounced the Eastern Central Polynesian word for the same boat, one they called a tumura'au.
They would have trouble pronouncing that and would come out tomolo'o. That's very normal, regular in Chumash.
The Chumash are thought to have started using the word tomolo'o sometime between 500 and 1200 AD. But it's more than the word for this canoe that's important. It's also the canoe itself, which has a design that turns out to be rare, very rare.
Once the planks were created, there would be holes drilled. We have holes on opposing edges of the planks, and those that were sewn together using this vegetable product-based cordage. That's a common technology throughout all of Polynesia, and it's only seen in two places in the entire native New World: the coast of Southern California and the coast of Chile.
Common words, common engineering, and there's more. Fish hooks. This is Dr. Yosahiko Shinoto, a veritable expert on fishhooks who studied them all over the Pacific. He has a collection of primitive fishhooks found off Catalina Island near Los Angeles.
Looks like shapes across some of the late Tahitian tribes.
The Catalina fishhooks seem to match fishhooks made in Tahiti around 1000 AD. Fishing for food is one way they could have survived a 4,000-mile voyage from the center of Polynesia to California. But what do Dr. Maximenko's maps of ocean currents say about all of this?
For a Polynesian voyage from Cook Islands to Santa Barbara area in California, the path would require nearly 300 days. That voyage would imply a lot of paddling. And if they were able to do that, they could make it.
Timbuktu accumulated navigational maps and logs from geographers throughout the world. During the 10th century, stories began to surface of sailors reaching a distant land.